God. Oh, my God.
Hartford 901, what's the location of your emergency?
My daughter is blue. I went to wake her up, and I just got home from lunch, and she won't wake up.
Okay, so is she breathing?
I don't think so, no. Jessie, she's cold.
She's cold?
She's cold. Oh, my God. Her pants are all wet, and she's got, it looks like strangulation marks.
There are strangulation marks?
That's what it looks like. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Honey, no. No. Honey, no.
That daughter was 19-year-old Jessie Marietta Blahaet, a university student known for her brilliance, kindness, and extraordinary musical talent. She was found lying in her bed, positioned carefully as if she were asleep, but Jessie was already dead. Jessie Blahaet was a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, studying theater and music education. Creativity was not just a passion for her, it was who she was. From a young age, her abilities stood out. In elementary school, she was so academically advanced that her teacher designed an individualized curriculum just for her. While other students learned basic spelling, Jessie was spelling complex words like metamorphosis. Her talents extended far beyond the classroom. She sang, played piano and violin, acted in musical theater, and wrote her own music. Yet despite being naturally gifted, Jessie never relied solely on talent. She worked relentlessly, driven by discipline and purpose. Her dream was to become a choir director, believing deeply that music could inspire change and bring people together. Outside of her studies, Jessie started her own small teaching business in Hartford, offering piano, voice, and violin lessons to children. Within just a few months, she had nearly 30 students. She volunteered every summer at the local middle school orchestra program, worked spare hours to earn extra money, and actively spoke out about environmental issues, sustainable living, and, increasingly, violence against women. To those who knew her, Jessie was compassionate, thoughtful, and deeply present, someone who made others feel important simply by listening. The summer of 2013 was especially busy and fulfilling for her. Jessie was performing in a local production of Fiddler on the Roof, and opening weekend had just concluded. The shows were a success. The theater was full, and the cast left the stage on a high. On Sunday, July 14th, they gathered at a house nearby to celebrate with a pool party. There were friends, laughter, and photos taken by the pool. Jessie was filmed smiling, posing beside llamas kept on the property. From the outside, she appeared happy and carefree. But when Jessie returned home around 1 a.m., something was different. Her mother, Joy Blahaet, noticed that her daughter seemed unsettled. Jessie did not say much at first, but eventually confided that she had felt deeply uncomfortable at the party. She told her mother that 2 older male cast members, both in their 40s, had made unwanted advances toward her. One of them had tried to pull her onto his lap. Later that night, Jessie wrote about the experience in her diary. She expressed distress, describing how she felt certain men were taking what should be platonic affection and turning it into something corrupted and competitive. She ended her entry with determination and faith, writing that she would recognize problems and confront them without fear. She closed the diary, said a prayer, and went to bed. A few hours later, around 8 a.m., Joy quietly entered Jessie's bedroom to put away some clothes. Jessie was still asleep and did not stir. Having watched her daughter juggle work, performances, and teaching all summer, Joy assumed Jessie was simply exhausted. She closed the door and left for work, allowing her to sleep. When Joy returned home just before noon, the house was unnervingly quiet. Jessie was supposed to be giving a piano lesson at 12:30 p.m. When the student arrived and knocked, there was no answer. Concerned, Joy called out for her daughter. Hearing nothing, she went upstairs to Jessie's bedroom. Jessie lay perfectly still. Her bed, usually messy, was neatly made. The blanket was wrapped around her body with unusual care. A sense of dread crept in. Joy walked around the bed, called Jesse's name again, and gently touched her. Her skin was cold. Her lips were blue. In a state of panic, Joy called 911. As she spoke to the dispatcher, horrifying details emerged. Jessie was not breathing. Her clothes were wet. Around her neck were marks that appeared to be from strangulation. Paramedics and police arrived quickly, but there was nothing they could do. Jessie Blahaet was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators immediately recognized that this was no accident. Jessie had been strangled to death. There were ligature marks on her neck and deep abrasions on her wrists and ankles, indicating that she had been restrained. Her hair and clothing were soaking wet, even hours after her death, suggesting that her body had been washed. She had then been carefully placed back into her bed to make it look as though she were sleeping. There were no signs of forced entry into the home. No broken windows, no damaged doors. Underneath Jessie's bed, police discovered a roll of tape that matched the marks found on her body. The tape did not belong to the household, meaning it had been brought there by the killer. The estimated time of death was around 9 a.m., after both of Jessie's parents had left for work. Whoever committed this crime knew the family's schedule, knew the layout of the house, and knew Jessie would be asleep and alone. The fact that the killer stayed to wash her body and staged the scene made it clear this was not a random intruder. Hartford, Wisconsin was a small town where violent crime was rare. Before Jessie's murder, there had not been a homicide there in nearly 30 years. As fear spread through the community, police reassured residents that there was no immediate threat to the public. Still, friends and neighbors struggled to understand how such brutality could be inflicted on someone like Jessie, a young woman with no known enemies and a life devoted to creativity and kindness. Vigils were held. Friends gathered together, leaning on one another in disbelief. Jessie's best friend painted her portrait for the funeral, staying up all night to capture the essence of the person they had lost. While the town mourned, investigators quietly began examining everyone who had crossed paths with Jessie in the days leading up to her death. Unbeknownst to them at the time, a violent attack that had occurred just days earlier in a nearby town would soon provide the crucial break in the case and reveal that Jessie's killer was far closer than anyone had ever imagined. As Hartford mourned the loss of Jessie Blahaet, investigators quietly pursued every possible lead. They spoke with her friends, co-workers, students, and cast members from the theater production. The two older men Jessie had mentioned to her mother were questioned and their phone records examined, but both were quickly ruled out. Their phones placed them far from Jessie's home that morning. Once again, the case seemed to stall. Then, just days later, police in a nearby town began investigating a crime that, at first glance, appeared unrelated. In Richfield, Wisconsin, a woman named Melissa had been walking her dog through a local park when she was suddenly attacked from behind. A man holding a knife grabbed her. In a moment of sheer instinct and courage, Melissa fought back, grabbing the blade with her bare hands. She managed to break free as the attacker fled to a dark blue minivan and drove away. Melissa was rushed to the hospital, where she required 15 stitches. Once discharged, Melissa was determined to help police. She provided an exceptionally detailed description of her attacker, a young white male, approximately 18 to 20 years old, around 6'2", with light blonde hair and very fair skin. She described his clothing, his build, and most importantly, his vehicle, an older model dark blue Dodge Caravan. Detectives were stunned by the clarity of her account. One officer recalled seeing a similar vehicle parked suspiciously near the same park weeks earlier. At the time, running the license plate had yielded nothing. Now, trusting his instincts, the officer tracked the van again. The vehicle was registered to a couple in their 40s. They did not match Melissa's description, but their 19-year-old son did. His name was Daniel Bartelt. Police contacted Daniel and asked him to come to the station for questioning. He agreed immediately and did not even ask why. What investigators did not know at that moment was where Daniel was when he received the call. He was inside Jessie Blahaet's home, attending a memorial gathering, crying with her friends, consoling her parents, and sharing stories about the young woman who had just been murdered. Daniel Bartelt was not a stranger to Jessie. He was her ex-boyfriend. Daniel and Jessie had known each other for years. They sat together in high school classes, bonded over music and theater, and eventually began dating. Their relationship made sense to everyone around them. They wrote songs together, played instruments together, and even recorded a song just 2 months before Jessie's death, which she posted online. Daniel ended the romantic relationship, but they remained friends. When Daniel dropped out of college after just 1 semester and returned home, Jessie was concerned. He had been a straight-A student, once full of ambition. Something seemed off. As he reintegrated into the same social circle, it became increasingly clear that although he had ended the relationship, Daniel wanted Jessie back. Jessie did not. She was happy being single. She valued their friendship, but nothing more. When Daniel arrived at the police station, detectives began questioning him about Melissa's attack. He was quiet, withdrawn, and evasive. He struggled to recall basic details of his day. When asked about his vehicle, he admitted he drove his parents' van. Officers noticed scratches and marks on his hands and arms. Daniel initially claimed they came from work, but later admitted he had lost his job weeks earlier. Caught in lie after lie, Daniel finally confessed to attacking Melissa. His explanation was chilling. He said he wanted to scare someone because others seemed confident and happy, and he was not. He wanted someone to feel like he did. Daniel was placed under arrest for the assault. But the interviews were far from over. As detectives continued questioning him, Daniel casually mentioned that he had been at the Blahaet house that day. He expressed disbelief that Jessie had been raped and murdered. The room went silent. At that point in time, police had not released any information indicating Jessie had been sexually assaulted. Even investigators were still awaiting confirmation from forensic examinations. Daniel had just revealed knowledge that only the killer would have. From that moment on, everything changed. Police detained Daniel as a suspect in Jessie's murder. His friends arrived at the station, expecting to pick him up within minutes, just as Daniel had confidently predicted. Instead, officers informed them he would not be released. The shock was overwhelming. To everyone who knew him, Daniel had seemed harmless, quiet, intelligent, sensitive. Search warrants were quickly executed. Surveillance footage placed Daniel at a park shortly after Jessie's estimated time of death. Investigators recovered items he had thrown into trash bins there. Inside, they found rope, bloody tissues, and tape identical to the tape used to bind Jessie. A search of Daniel's bedroom revealed more rope and tape. Forensic analysis found both Jessie's DNA and Daniel's DNA on the materials, as well as Daniel's DNA underneath Jessie's fingernails. The evidence confirmed what investigators had feared. Jessie had fought for her life. The autopsy confirmed that Jessie had been raped, restrained, and strangled. What detectives found on Daniel's laptop was equally disturbing. His search history included topics such as serial killers, strangulation cases, and violent sexual content. One video depicted a woman being raped, strangled, washed, and placed into bed, eerily mirroring exactly what had been done to Jessie. They also discovered fragments of a fictional manuscript titled Red is Red, written under the name Joseph Bartel, Daniel's middle name. The story included graphic scenes of violence against a female character named Jessica. The case was overwhelming in its clarity. Daniel Bartelt was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, along with additional felony charges related to the attack on Melissa. Prosecutors revealed that Daniel had entered Jessie's home around 9 a.m. after her parents left for work. He brought what the prosecution later called a murder kit. He restrained Jessie, raped her, strangled her with a rope, washed her body, and carefully staged the scene before leaving. Throughout the investigation, Daniel had mourned alongside Jessie's loved ones, hugged her parents, and cried with her friends. The betrayal was devastating. At trial, Jesse's mother, Joy, took the stand first. Jurors were shown video of the crime scene footage too graphic to be shown publicly. Detectives testified about the evidence, the DNA, the videos, and Daniel's own words. The defense argued contamination and circumstantial evidence, but it was not enough. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, Daniel Bartelt was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For the attack on Melissa, he received an additional sentence that many criticized as far too lenient. During sentencing, Daniel spoke at length, offering a rambling statement filled with contradictions, denial, and self-pity. He claimed he could not prove his innocence, but also could not admit guilt. Then Jesse's father, Buck Blahaet, stood and did something no one expected. He forgave him. Buck told Daniel that he had forgiven him every day since learning the truth, but that forgiveness did not erase responsibility. He said Jesse was now free, and that as long as Daniel lived, he still had the chance to tell the truth. In the aftermath of unimaginable loss, Jesse's family chose not hate, but purpose. From their grief, they founded the Love is Greater Than Hate Project, a nonprofit dedicated to ending violence against women and promoting forgiveness, education, and awareness. Jesse's voice, silenced by violence, became a message carried forward by her family and community. Her life was taken, but her legacy endured a reminder that love can exist even in the aftermath of unimaginable darkness, and that choosing compassion does not mean forgetting the truth. In Hartford, Wisconsin, the town would never forget Jessie Blahaet, and through the mission her parents now carry, neither would the world.